It all started on a quiet Saturday morning. My wife and I had just finished our coffee when we noticed something odd by the pond behind our property. At first, we thought maybe it was just someone out for a walk, but nope. It was Karen. Not just any Karen. HOA Karen. The same lady who's tried to fine us for everything from the color of our mailbox to unapproved lawn gnomes. And now, she had the nerve to set up a full-blown camp tent, chairs, even a little fire pitch right by our pond like it was a public park. We walked out to see what was going on, and her response: "It's community land, and I have every right to enjoy it." Mind you, we own this land. We even showed her the deed once before during a previous HOA dispute, which she conveniently forgot. But this time, it was different. She wasn't just trespassing, she was acting like she was hosting a backyard retreat. Right on our property, we tried to reason with her, but of course, that only fired her up. She started yelling about bylaws, threatened to report us to the HOA board, which she basically runs, and said she'd get lawyers involved. And just when we thought it couldn't get more ridiculous, something happened that flipped the whole situation upside down. Let's just say, karma showed up with muddy boots and things got messy. Real messy. You won't believe what went down next. Now, to really understand how wild this all got, you need to know a little more about Karen and our history with her. She's not just a random neighbor, she's the self-appointed queen of the HOA. She walks around like she owns the whole neighborhood, clipboard in hand, snapping photos of people's yards like she's on a mission from City Hall. We've had run-ins before, over small things like the time she tried to cite us for having unapproved bird feeders. Yeah, seriously. But camping by our pond? That was a new level. Our pond isn't just a little ditch, it's a natural part of the property, something we've taken care of for years. We've landscaped it, stocked it, even added a little dock. It's private, not community land. And somehow, she twisted it in her mind to think she had the right to camp there. As the sun started rising higher, Karen's little setup turned into a full scene. She had music playing, was burning what smelled like cheap incense, and kept waving at people walking by like she was hosting some peaceful neighborhood event. Meanwhile, we were standing on our own land, confused, annoyed, and completely unsure how to handle it without starting a full-on scene. That's when my wife suggested we check the trail cam footage. We'd installed a few cameras by the pond for wildlife, but what they caught the night before wasn't a deer or a raccoon. It was Karen, doing something that would change everything when we pulled up the trail cam footage we expected to maybe catch Karen sneaking in with her tent or dragging a cooler. But what we saw was way more bizarre. Around 11 p.m. the night before, she walked onto our property with a flashlight, a roll of tape, and what looked like flags. She was marking the ground-staking little colored flags all around the pond like she was surveying it. My wife and I just looked at each other in disbelief. Who does that? The next morning, we tried confronting her again, this time with the footage, but instead of backing down, Karen doubled down. "I'm mapping future shared spaces for the community garden project," she said like it was no big deal. It's part of the HOA's long-term plan. Except there's no such plan. We checked every meeting record and announcement. Nothing about community gardens, and certainly nothing involving our pond. Meanwhile, neighbors had started noticing the commotion. A few even came by asking why Karen was camped out like she was claiming new territory. One of them, Dave from down the street, whispered to me that Karen had mentioned turning the pond into a wellness retreat space. Another said she'd been talking to a local landscape company, asking for quotes on community water features. That's when it clicked. This wasn't random. Karen was planning something bigger, and we were right in the middle of it. But what she didn't know yet was we weren't the only ones watching her. At this point, the situation was starting to feel less like a neighborly disagreement and more like a full-on land grab. Karen had been calling in favors, dropping HOA, buzzwords like easement rights and shared access, trying to convince the neighborhood that our pond somehow fell under community jurisdiction. Word was spreading fast, and people started treating the whole thing like a town event. Cars slowed as they passed. Couple folks even brought lawn chairs to see how it played out. It was surreal, but the tension really started boiling when a landscaper's truck showed up right on our driveway. The guy said he was hired by the HOA to start mapping out phase 1 of a pond redesign. I nearly laughed until I realized he was serious. We told him to leave immediately. And he did, but not before handing us a quote for over $8,000. That's when I knew Karen wasn't bluffing anymore. Meanwhile, my wife had been quietly digging through public records. What she found made our jaws drop. Not only was the pond fully listed under our deeded lot, but Karen had been filing internal HOA requests to expand green spaces without homeowner votes. The worst part? She was trying to reclassify parts of our land under a vague community buffer zone. As we pieced everything together, the trail cam picked up new footage. Someone else was out there late at night. Not Karen this time. Someone we didn't expect. And they were carrying documents. That's when it all started to unravel. When we reviewed the latest trail cam footage, we expected more of Karen's usual antics. But this time, the figure moving in the dark wasn't hurt, was Mark, the HOA vice president. He was crouched near the edge of the pond with a flashlight and a thick folder in his hands. He kept glancing around like he knew he wasn't supposed to be there. Then he pulled something from the folder and started pushing metal stakes into the ground, marking the same exact area Karen had flagged days earlier. The next morning, we decided it was time to talk to Mark directly. We caught him during his jog and asked him straight up what he was doing on our property. At first, he played dumb. But when we mentioned the trail cam footage, his face changed. Nervous, tight-lipped, he finally muttered, "Karen told me it was approved by the board." Then he walked off fast, like he wanted nothing more to do with it. That was the moment we realized this wasn't just Karen acting out on her own. There was something bigger going on behind the scenes, something involving HOA leadership, private deals, and possibly even forged paperwork. My wife managed to dig up an old email thread from a neighbor who'd once served on the board. Turns out, Karen had tried something similar. A few years ago, with a different piece of land, nearly got removed for it. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the pond anymore. It was about uncovering what else she might have been hiding, with everything adding up the flagged land. The late-night visits, the landscapers, quote. And now Mark's strange behavior, we decided it was time to go straight to the county office. We requested a certified copy of our property lines, permits, and any recent filings connected to our address. What we found floored us. Someone had submitted a request to rezone the land behind our home as a shared HOA recreational space. And the name on the application, Karen. The kicker. The application included a fake signature under our name, supposedly giving consent. We brought the documents straight to the HOA board's emergency meeting and laid it all out. The trail cam footage, the forged rezoning form, and the email thread from the former board member. The room went dead silent. Karen tried to play innocent at first, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But once the county stamp and signature came into question, even Mark couldn't back her up. The board voted immediately to suspend her HOA privileges and launch a full investigation. Her little camping stunt had triggered her own downfall. But just when we thought it was over, the twist came. One of the board members, flipping through the paperwork we submitted, paused and said, "Wait, this isn't the only rezoning form." She filed. Turns out, Karen had submitted 3 more requests targeting other private lots in the neighborhood. Ours was just the test run, and suddenly, everyone in the room realized we weren't the only ones she had plans for. Once word got out that Karen had filed fake rezoning forms on multiple properties, the neighborhood turned upside down. Homeowners who had never even attended a meeting were now demanding answers. The county opened an official inquiry, and with the evidence we provided, it didn't take long for them to confirm the signatures were forged. Karen stepped down from the HOA completely before she could be removed, probably trying to avoid further embarrassment. Mark, surprisingly, came forward and admitted he had been pressured by her but never knew about the fake documents. He resigned. 2. The HOA brought in new leadership, and a rule was added that no land use changes could be proposed without written, verified consent from the actual property owner, witnessed and notarized. A small win, but a big one for protecting everyone's rights. As for us, we posted the footage and story to our community group to stir drama but to be transparent. The response was overwhelming. People thanked us for standing up and catching what could have turned into a bigger mess for everyone. The pond is now back to being the quiet, peaceful spot it's always been. No tents, no flags, no secret wellness retreats. In the end, what started with a tent and a bold lie turned into a wake-up call for the whole neighborhood.